Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The revelation that Audra Charles might be pregnant, whether genuinely or as part of a strategic ploy, sends shockwaves through Genoa City, igniting a storm of speculation, suspicion, and emotional upheaval that ripples far beyond her immediate circle. Because in a town where secrets are currency and manipulation is a weapon, the truth behind her unplanned pregnancy could redefine relationships, power dynamics, and futures. From the very moment Audra casually drops the bombshell to Nate Hastings, her timing feels suspicious, her delivery almost too calculated, leaving Nate staring at her in disbelief, caught between paternal instincts and a doctor's professional skepticism, unsure whether to take her at her word or to assume this is yet another chess move in her endless game of survival and ambition. Audra, ever the master strategist, knows Nate is at a vulnerable point in his life. His career, once so promising, has been rocked by scandal and questionable alliances, his relationship with Elena left in shambles, his loyalty to Devon tested, his place in the Newman empire uncertain, making him ripe for manipulation. And what better way to secure a man's presence, if not his love, than by presenting him with the possibility of fatherhood? Yet the question lingers, is Audra's pregnancy real, the result of reckless passion in her turbulent affair with Nate, or is it an elaborate fabrication designed to bind him to her when she feels him slipping away, perhaps into Elena's forgiving arms, or toward Claire Newman's unexpected influence, or even back into the gravitational pull of Victoria Newman, a woman who still lingers at the edges of his mind like a haunting reminder of what could have been? For Nate, the idea of becoming a father is no casual notion. He has long struggled with his sense of identity, purpose, and morality, torn between the healer's instinct embedded in his DNA as a doctor and the ruthless instincts he's adopted while climbing the corporate ladder at Newman. And Audra knows that playing the pregnancy card strikes at the core of his humanity, pulling on strings that she believes cannot be ignored. But Genoa City is not kind to lies, and rumors begin to circulate almost immediately. Was Audra seen at a doctor's office, or was she merely planting the seed in Nate's mind to see how far she could push him? Devon, fiercely protective of his family's legacy and deeply mistrustful of Audra's motives, begins digging for answers, suspecting that her alleged pregnancy is just another angle to entrench herself into the powerful circles of Newman and Chancellor Winters, and his suspicions may not be unfounded given Audra's history of calculated seductions and ruthless power plays. Elena, meanwhile, reacts with a mix of disbelief and heartbreak when whispers of Audra's news reach her, for while she tried to wash her hands of Nate after their painful breakup, the thought of him fathering a child with the very woman who helped destroy their love cuts deep, reopening wounds she thought she'd closed, and igniting a storm of emotions she struggles to contain. To complicate matters further, Victoria Newman herself cannot ignore the undercurrent of jealousy and unease that Audra's announcement provokes, for while she has tried to compartmentalize her own history with Nate, seeing Audra wield a potential pregnancy as leverage reminds Victoria of her own history of manipulation, power plays, and family entanglements, stirring both guilt and resentment as she debates whether to intervene or to let Nate untangle this mess himself. Yet the most intriguing question is whether Audra is truly pregnant at all, for viewers know she has the cunning, the charisma, and the audacity to fake sonograms, to manipulate timelines, to enlist sympathetic allies who can vouch for her story, and even to feign morning sickness if it serves her greater ambition. And in a town where medical records can be forged and loyalties bought, a false pregnancy is hardly out of reach. Still, should the pregnancy prove to be real, the consequences would be seismic. Nate, already torn between his desire for redemption and his attraction to power, would be thrust into fatherhood with a woman he both desires and distrusts. Devon would be forced to contend with the fact that Audra, once his partner, now a thorn in his side, was irrevocably tied to his family, and Elena would face the cruel reality that her former love had moved on in the most permanent of ways. Even Victor Newman, always one to seize leverage where he can, would weigh in, perhaps urging Nate to step up, not out of paternal solidarity, but because another Newman-adjacent heir could become a pawn in the eternal chess match he plays against his enemies, while Nikki would quietly see that the idea of another schemer like Audra further entrenching herself in their already fragile family empire. Meanwhile, Audra's private thoughts reveal a more complex, layered woman than many give her credit for. Yes, she is manipulative. Yes, she is ambitious. But beneath the icy veneer there flickers a genuine fear of losing her grip, of being discarded, of fading into irrelevance after fighting so hard to secure her place in Genoa City. And whether real or imagined, the pregnancy is her gamble to hold on to a man she sees not only as a partner but as a shield against loneliness, betrayal, and vulnerability. Nate, for his part, struggles in silence, replaying every interaction with Audra, questioning whether he should demand proof, whether he should trust her word, whether he should confide in Devon or Elena, or whether he should wait quietly until her body confirms what her words insist. But silence, in this case, may be his undoing, for Audra thrives in ambiguity, using every moment of doubt to deepen her hold. The city itself becomes a cauldron of gossip. Phyllis Summers, never one to miss a chance at stirring drama, slyly spreads her suspicions over drinks at society. Chelsea Lawson, recalling her own history of unplanned pregnancy and manipulation, warns Chloe that Audra's story feels too convenient. Sharon Rosales, ever the voice of reason, offers Nate a listening ear, reminding him that truth always surfaces eventually, even when buried under lies. As the days pass, every gesture from Audra, the way she touches her stomach absent-mindedly, the way she declines a glass of wine, the way she allows a faint grimace to pass across her face in public, becomes scrutinized, analyzed, debated, each action either confirming or disproving her claim depending on the observer's bias. And soon Nate himself begins to lose sight of what is real and what is theater. Audra is lying. The revelation of her deceit could be catastrophic, destroying not only her chances with Nate but also any remaining shred of credibility she has in Genoa City, leaving her isolated, vulnerable, and potentially blacklisted from the very power circle she clawed her way into. But if she is telling the truth, then her unplanned pregnancy could become the most significant turning point in her story, forcing her to confront what it truly means to be responsible for another life, and challenging Nate to decide whether he wants to be a father, a partner, or neither. And in the midst of this chaos, fate may deliver its cruelest twist yet, a medical complication, a DNA test, or a rival schemer uncovering evidence that blows the whole situation wide open, exposing lies if they exist, or confirming truths that no one wanted to face. Because in Genoa City, every secret is a ticking time bomb, every pregnancy is a question of power as much as paternity, and every relationship stands on the edge of destruction. So as Audra walks the fine line between manipulation and reality, the city waits with bated breath to see whether her unplanned pregnancy is the scheme of the century, or the moment that redefines her life, Nate's future, and the fragile balance of alliances that hold Genoa City together. As the days unravel after Audra's shocking revelation, the storyline spirals into a tense saga of suspicion, emotional warfare, and strategic maneuvering, because in Genoa City, no secret remains hidden for long and every lie eventually collides with truth in the most devastating way possible. And with Audra's alleged pregnancy now the centerpiece of whispered conversations at society, the Grand Phoenix, and Newman Enterprises, the entire town seems to lean in closer, waiting for the first crack to show in her carefully constructed facade. Nate Hastings, typically steady and measured, finds himself sleepless, pacing his penthouse as he replays every word Audra uttered during her confession, wondering whether the hesitation in her voice signaled fear of rejection or the nervousness of a woman spinning a lie. And though he wants desperately to believe her, his instincts as both a physician and a man who has been burned by betrayal more than once tell him not to accept anything at face value. His turmoil is only compounded when Devon Winters approaches him at crimson lights with a pointed question wrapped in polite curiosity. "So, when were you going to tell me about Audra?" The accusation hangs heavy in the air, making it clear that Devon already suspects the pregnancy is nothing more than a ploy, and his concern, while framed as familial, is laced with the sharp undertone of judgment, as if Nate should have known better than to fall into Audra's web. Meanwhile, Elena Dawson, who has done her best to move forward with dignity after Nate's betrayal, is blindsided when she overhears two nurses at Memorial gossiping about Audra's possible pregnancy, and though she tries to ignore it, the words burrow into her heart like splinters, reopening her wounds with a mix of jealousy, regret, and reluctant concern. For while she no longer claims Nate as her own, the thought of him becoming a father with Audra makes her question whether everything she and Nate had shared was truly meaningless. But Audra thrives on the whispers, knowing that every glance, every hushed conversation only deepens the mystery surrounding her. Because whether the pregnancy is real or not, perception is power in Genoa City, And she understands better than anyone that if people believe she is carrying Nate's child, then Nate himself will eventually be forced to act accordingly. Victoria Newman watches from the sidelines, pretending indifference while internally simmering, because though she has moved on from Nate in practical terms, she cannot ignore the twinge of jealousy that gnaws at her when she sees Audra maneuvering with such brazen confidence, and it infuriates her that Nate might be tied down permanently to a woman she considers manipulative and beneath him. And as her father Victor begins to speculate about the strategic value of Nate fathering a child who could, by extension, be woven into Newman's legacy, Victoria starts to fear that her family's ruthless priorities may once again overwrite the personal happiness of those entangled in their orbit. And Victor, ever the strategist, sees the pregnancy as an opportunity. Another Newman-adjacent baby could become leverage, a pawn in his unending chess match against rivals like Jack Abbott or even within his own family dynamics. So he probes Audra subtly during a boardroom encounter, asking with feigned kindness if she is taking care of herself these days, his piercing gaze lingering just long enough to make Audra realize he is already assessing the angles, weighing her utility, and calculating the cost of bringing her into the Newman fold in a way that could not easily be undone. Across town, Phyllis Summers, who relishes nothing more than a juicy piece of gossip, seizes upon the news to needle both Nate and Devon whenever possible, dropping sly remarks about paternity tests and morning sickness, enjoying the chaos more than the truth itself. And Chelsea Lawson, haunted by her own history of unplanned pregnancies and the fallout of manipulation, warns Chloe Mitchell that Audra's timing is far too convenient, likening it to her own darkest days when desperation led her to weaponize motherhood. Sharon Rosales, however, takes a more compassionate stance, quietly advising Nate not to let fear or suspicion dictate his choices, reminding him that whether Audra is lying or not, the truth will eventually surface, and the way he responds now will define not just his relationship with Audra but his own sense of integrity. Yet the most telling cracks appear in Audra herself. Though she maintains her confident, almost smug demeanor in public, in private moments she is rattled, staring into mirrors and practicing her expressions, rehearsing lines like it wasn't planned, but I'm ready for this responsibility, as though she is preparing for a performance, and the weight of what she's doing, or what she's pretending to do, begins to gnaw at her conscience in fleeting flashes of vulnerability. One evening, alone in her suite at the Grand Phoenix, she collapses onto the bed clutching her stomach, not from physical pain but from the crushing anxiety of knowing that if she is exposed, she will lose everything. Yet if she succeeds, she could secure not only Nate's loyalty but a permanent place in Genoa City's elite. Meanwhile, suspicions escalate when Devon discreetly hires a private investigator to confirm whether Audra has visited an OB/GYN, and though the initial reports are inconclusive, whispers of falsified medical records begin to swirl, hinting that Audra may have gone so far as to bribe someone to cover her tracks. Nate, oblivious to Devon's investigation, begins noticing inconsistencies, Audra declining coffee one day claiming nausea, only to be seen drinking champagne at society the next, her vague answers when he asks how far along she might be, the way she deflects whenever he brings up medical appointments, and though he wants to believe her, the gnawing suspicion becomes impossible to silence. Tension finally boils over when Nate confronts Audra in her suite, demanding clarity, his voice a mixture of anger and fear, but Audra, rather than caving, doubles down, turning the confrontation back on him by accusing him of doubting her, of failing to trust her when she needs him most, and Nate, caught off guard, finds himself apologizing even though his instincts scream that something is wrong. Across town, Elena wrestles with her conscience, wondering whether to reach out to Nate and offer him support, but knowing that doing so might only entangle her in more drama, and Victoria, unable to stand idly by, begins quietly digging into Audra's story herself, using Newman's vast resources to uncover the truth, and it becomes clear that Audra's supposed pregnancy is no longer just a personal issue. It has become a battleground for power, pride, and control. If she is lying, the exposure of her deceit could destroy her completely, severing her ties with Nate, Devon, Newman, and any ally who once tolerated her, leaving her isolated and despised. But if she is telling the truth, then her pregnancy could reshape the entire fabric of Genoa City, forcing old rivals into uneasy alliances, reopening wounds thought long closed, and pushing Nate into the most difficult decision of his life, whether to embrace fatherhood with a woman he can't fully trust, or to fight for his independence no matter the cost. As each day passes, the the suspense builds, and the audience is left to wonder whether Audra's unplanned pregnancy is truly the defining twist of her arc, or the ticking time bomb that will unravel everything she has fought to build in the dangerous, unforgiving world of Genoa City. The days following Nate's confrontation with Audra turn into a slow-burning inferno of mistrust, manipulation, and emotional turmoil, with Genoa City buzzing like a hive around the mystery of her alleged pregnancy. And while Audra keeps up her act with a calm, confident veneer, behind closed doors she grows increasingly frantic, because maintaining a lie of this magnitude requires precision, timing, and flawless execution, and even the slightest slip could bring her entire house of cards crashing down. So she begins carefully planting clues to reinforce her story, casually mentioning doctor appointments she never attends, leaving pamphlets from prenatal clinics on her nightstand where Nate might see them, and staging bouts of morning sickness at the most opportune moments. But what she cannot control are the people around her, all of whom have their own suspicions, motives, and grudges. Devon, ever protective of his family and already weary of Audra's games, intensifies his private investigation, pressing his PI for medical records, shadowing Audra's movements, and even considering leveraging connections at Memorial Hospital to verify her claims, because the thought of his cousin Nate being chained to a woman he sees as a predator is intolerable to him. And though he tries to frame his actions as familial concern, the truth is that Devon's distrust of Audra runs deeper than Nate knows, laced with resentment from their own failed partnership and the damage she left in her wake. Elena, on the other hand, finds herself torn between anger and empathy as she observes the situation from the periphery, unable to escape the whispers at the hospital and the ache in her chest whenever she imagines Nate as a father. And though she tells herself she no longer has a claim on him, she cannot silence the memories of what they once shared, nor can she resist the urge to confide in her colleague Sharon, who gently advises her that sometimes the only way to heal is to face the truth head on, even if it hurts. Meanwhile, Victoria Newman's unease festers into obsession as she digs deeper into Audra's supposed pregnancy, using Newman's resources to quietly gather intel, because she cannot stand the thought of Nate being trapped, and though she masks her actions as business strategy, her motives are laced with jealousy and unresolved feelings, which she refuses to admit even to herself, and when she learns from a quiet source at Memorial that no appointments under Audra's name exist in their system, her suspicions are confirmed, igniting a simmering determination to expose Audra once and for all. Yet Audra, ever the opportunist, begins to sense Victoria's hostility and calculates how to use it to her advantage, painting herself as the vulnerable victim of Victoria's jealousy when speaking to Nate, implying that Victoria's interference is just an attempt to sabotage their relationship out of spite, and Nate, conflicted and weary, finds himself questioning whether his instincts are wrong, whether perhaps Audra truly is pregnant and simply being unfairly judged by people with agendas of their own. This internal conflict drives him deeper into isolation, pulling away from Devon, avoiding Elena, and refusing to engage with Victoria, leaving him almost entirely in Audra's orbit, which is precisely where she wants him, though even she begins to feel the crushing weight of her deception as her lies stack higher and the scrutiny intensifies. Gossip swirls at every turn. Phyllis casually drops comments about Audra's delicate condition to rile up Victoria, while Chelsea warns Chloe that Audra's timing feels eerily reminiscent of her own manipulative past, and even Jack Abbott, though not directly involved, muses to Diane about how Audra is playing a dangerous game that can only end badly. Victor Newman, however, remains silent but observant, watching the pieces move across the board with his usual calculated calm. Because whether Audra is truly pregnant or not, the situation presents an opportunity for leverage, and Victor never wastes an opportunity. In the meantime, Nate begins pressing Audra for specifics, when she found out how far along she is, who her doctor is, and though Audra improvises with practiced ease, there are moments when her mask nearly slips, when she hesitates just a fraction too long, when her stories don't align perfectly, and each of these moments gnaws at Nate, fueling his suspicion even as he desperately wants to believe her. The tension between them escalates to the point where Nate insists on accompanying her to her next doctor's appointment, forcing Audra into a corner she hadn't anticipated, and in a moment of panic, she feigns a medical emergency, claiming sudden cramping and rushing into a private room at the Grand Phoenix, shutting the door and leaving Nate banging helplessly outside. And though she later emerges calm and dismissive, claiming it was nothing serious, the incident plants a seed of doubt so strong that Nate cannot shake it, and he resolves silently to demand proof, even if it destroys whatever they share. As the pressure mounts, Audra's inner turmoil intensifies. There are flashes of vulnerability where she stares at herself in the mirror, questioning why she feels compelled to cling to Nate this way, why she cannot simply walk away and rebuild elsewhere. And in those moments it becomes clear that beneath the ambition and manipulation lies a deep-seated fear of abandonment, of being cast aside once again. A fear so powerful that she is willing to risk everything to keep Nate tethered to her. Yet fate has a way of pushing lies to their breaking point. And the catalyst comes when Devon, unwilling to wait any longer, confronts Nate directly with evidence from his PI suggesting that Audra has never visited a doctor at all, handing Nate photographs, reports, and dates that make it nearly impossible to dismiss the truth. And though Nate initially lashes out at Devon for meddling, the seed of doubt becomes undeniable, pushing him to confront Audra one final time with an ultimatum: either she proves the pregnancy is real with medical documentation, or he walks away for good. The confrontation is explosive. Audra, cornered and desperate, lashes out with accusations of betrayal and abandonment, insisting that Nate doesn't trust her because he never truly loved her, that everyone in Genoa City wants to see her fail, that she is being judged unfairly because of her past. But as Nate stands firm, demanding proof, her defenses begin to crack. Her eyes well with tears not entirely of manipulation but of genuine fear. And for a fleeting moment, the audience sees the woman beneath the mask, a woman terrified of being alone, of losing control, of having no one to stand by her. But whether that vulnerability is enough to sway Nate remains to be seen, because as he walks out of her suite, leaving her crumbling in private, the future of their relationship, and the truth about her pregnancy, hangs by a thread, ready to unravel in spectacular fashion that will leave Genoa City reeling.